I remember sitting there late at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about scarcity and how deeply it's wired into human history, how every civilization we know has been built around the idea that there isn't enough to go around. And I kept asking myself why we just accept that as a permanent feature of reality when it's really a temporary artifact of our technology level. Because when you zoom out far enough, poverty isn't a moral failure or a natural law. It's a systems problem, and systems can be redesigned. And I've always been obsessed with first principles, stripping things down to what actually matters. And from that perspective, the future becomes obvious if you're willing to follow the logic all the way through, because once intelligence scales and automation scales and energy becomes abundant, the cost of goods trends toward zero, not metaphorically but mathematically. And when the marginal cost of producing food, housing, transportation, education, and healthcare collapses, the idea of people struggling just to survive starts to look like a bug we forgot to patch rather than an unavoidable reality. And people sometimes think I'm talking about some utopian fantasy, but I'm not. I'm talking about trajectories that are already visible if you pay attention, like how software ate the world and then started eating other industries, and how AI is now eating software itself. And when machines can do almost all economically useful labor better and cheaper than humans, the question stops being how do we create jobs and starts being how do we distribute abundance. And that's where the concept of universal high income comes in, not as charity, not as socialism, but as a recognition that ownership of productive systems can be abstracted and shared, that the output of machines doesn't have to flow to a tiny group at the top, because if it does, we'll destabilize civilization, and stability is not just ethically desirable, it's required for progress. And I think people misunderstand when I say money becomes irrelevant, because I don't mean people wake up one day and cash just vanishes. I mean, money slowly loses its power as a gatekeeper when access becomes more important than ownership, when you don't need to buy a car because autonomous transportation is everywhere, when you don't need to own a house in the traditional sense because construction is automated and energy is cheap and land use is optimized. When education is personalized by AI tutors that cost almost nothing to run, and at that point, money becomes more like an internal accounting system than a survival mechanism, and humans are finally free to ask what they actually want to do instead of what they must do to avoid suffering. And that's the part that excites me the most, because throughout history, the smartest, most creative people have often been trapped by circumstance, never getting the chance to explore their potential. And a future with universal high income is really a future where creativity is unleashed at scale, where people become explorers, artists, engineers, caregivers, philosophers, inventors, not because it pays well, but because it's meaningful. And yes, there will be challenges, there always are. Humans don't handle transitions well, and there will be identity crises when work is no longer the center of life. But that's a solvable problem too, because meaning doesn't come from labor, it comes from purpose, from relationships, from curiosity, from pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And when survival is guaranteed, purpose can evolve. And I think in that world, we'll look back at extreme poverty the same way we look back at diseases we eradicated, with a mix of sadness and disbelief that we ever tolerated it. And that's why I keep building, keep pushing on rockets, cars, energy, AI, not because any single company is the answer, but because every step toward abundance bends the curve away from scarcity. And if we get this right, the future isn't one where humans are replaced. It's one where humans are finally unshackled, where the default state of existence is not fear of lack, but confidence in possibility. And that's a future worth accelerating toward. And when I think about the long arc of this, I always come back to the idea that civilizations are judged not by what they invent, but by what they make accessible. Because it doesn't matter if you can land rockets or build super intelligent machines if most people are still stuck in survival mode. And that's why I believe the real revolution isn't technological, it's distributional. It's about ensuring that the output of an automated civilization benefits everyone by default. And people ask me all the time what humans will do in a world where AI can do almost everything. And I tell them that's the wrong framing. Because humans aren't tools whose value is measured by productivity alone. We're consciousness exploring itself. And for the first time ever, we're approaching a point where that exploration doesn't have to be constrained by economics, where a kid born anywhere on Earth can have access to the same knowledge, the same tools, the same opportunities, not because someone felt generous, but because the system makes exclusion inefficient. And that's the key insight most people miss. Abundance changes incentives when energy is nearly free thanks to solar and storage, when manufacturing is driven by robots that don't need sleep, when AI designs better systems faster than any human team ever could, hoarding stops making sense, because there's nothing to gain from denying others what costs you almost nothing to provide. And that's how poverty actually ends. Not with speeches or policies alone, but with physics and economics converging in a way that makes deprivation irrational. And I know some people worry that universal high income will make people lazy or complacent, but that assumes humans only move when pushed by fear. And that's a very low resolution model of human nature. Because when you remove desperation, what you actually see is curiosity exploding. People learning for the sake of learning, building things because they're interesting, forming communities around shared goals instead of shared struggles. And sure, some people will choose to do very little, and that's fine, because the system can support that without collapsing. And for most people, boredom becomes the new challenge. And boredom is a powerful catalyst. It pushes you to create, to explore, to ask bigger questions. And that's where I think humanity really levels up. When the baseline is secure and the frontier becomes meaning. And in that world, money doesn't disappear, but it fades into the background, like plumbing or electricity, something you don't obsess over because it just works, and status stops being about accumulation and starts being about contribution, about ideas, about impact, about who helped push humanity forward or made life more interesting or more beautiful. And if you zoom out far enough, this isn't even radical, it's just the next logical step. We already accept that children shouldn't have to earn their right to eat. We already accept public education and infrastructure as baseline goods. Universal high income is simply extending that logic to an age where machines do the work and humans do the choosing. And the future I see isn't perfect. Nothing ever is, but it's dramatically better than a world where billions of people are locked out of their potential. And if there's one thing I've learned building companies that everyone said were impossible, it's that the future doesn't arrive because it's comfortable. It arrives because it's inevitable. And a post-poverty civilization driven by abundance, automation, and shared prosperity isn't a dream, it's a destination, and the only real question left is how quickly we choose to get there. And when people push back and say this sounds too optimistic, too detached from human history, I remind them that every major leap forward sounded unrealistic until it became mundane. That flying across the planet in hours, carrying supercomputers in our pockets, or having instant access to the sum of human knowledge would have been dismissed as fantasy not that long ago. And yet, here we are. And the reason I'm so confident about this trajectory is because it's driven by compounding forces, not wishful thinking, intelligence compounds, energy compounds, manufacturing efficiency compounds. And once those curves intersect, change doesn't happen linearly, it happens all at once. And societies that aren't prepared for abundance will initially try to manage it with scarcity-based rules, which will cause friction, but eventually reality wins. Because you can't regulate your way out of physics. And the physics says that when production becomes effectively limitless, exclusion becomes the anomaly, not inclusion. And I think a lot about what this means on a psychological level, because humans evolved in environments where resources were scarce, and survival depended on competition. So we've internalized narratives about worth being tied to struggle, to suffering, to earning your place, and those narratives don't vanish overnight.